So what are we rigging up to fish this stuff and punch these kind of submerged mats and isolated mats? It's pretty traditional. I have a 1.5 ounce. This is a Hogtech tungsten weight. I'll be perfectly honest with you. If I had another rod set up, I just kind of came out and wanted to see what the grass looked like, and I'm playing around a little bit. If I was really prepared for this situation, I'd probably have 2 or 3 punching rods. One of them with a 1.5, just like this. Another one with probably a 1.25 or a 1 ounce, a little lighter setup, maybe on a 7.6. What I have right here is this is a 7.9 Halo TI Heavy. This is the punching rod for me. Like, it's long enough, just long enough. The tip is a little more moderate. It's perfect. You don't overpower the fish, but it's got enough backbone to pull a 6-pounder and about 20 pounds of grass up. But I would have this guy, I'd have a 7.6 with like a 1.25 or a 1 ounce. Basically what I'd use that for is some of the sparser stuff that I'm running into. All of them would have double bobber stoppers, just like this, and they'd have a snelled. I like the Hack Attack hook. It's a straight shank, super wide gauge hook. A lot of guys don't like this hook. Use whatever hook makes you happy, but I would recommend using a straight shank hook in this situation. If you're really not comfortable with it, or you don't have a straight shank, get yourself an offset wide gap hook, but just make sure it's got enough gauge that if you do hook a big one, it doesn't become the worst day of fishing of your life, because that would be super sad, because this is a fun way to fish and catch bigs. The other setup that I'd have is a 1.5 probably with a punch skirt. Exact same, tungsten weight with the straight shank, but what that does is it really makes my 1.5 fall more like a 1.25. But it's just like jig fishing or anything like that. Whenever you go to something with a skirt, you're going to want to increase the weight that you have along with it. So in that case, it would be like fishing a 1.25, but I have a 1.5 because it's going to slow down that fall, and I still want to be able, actually almost all of this is based on a reaction bite. It's pretty much based on the drop. Every once in a while you'll catch some pumping it up and kind of suspending the bait, but you really want that pretty quick fall to kind of trigger these fish. Plus we're early in summer. The grass is kind of coming up and just topping off, so these fish, just like we talked about with the ledge fish, they're fresh, dude. They're either coming off the bank from being spawning, from whatever, or they're coming out from the deep after getting battered by Nico rigs like we did. Yes, jigs, crankbaits. So having something that causes them to react also allows you to cover water. There's probably 100 fish in some of these areas that we're fishing, but we're only going to get 2, 3, 4 bites. So you got to be able to cover water and move. What I'm rigging up, and this is for the most part, this is kind of what I'm starting with, and I'm probably going to end up going to a BB Cricket, something a little more compact, because we might refish some of our stuff. But I got a Stinger right here. It's just a ribbed creature bait. Any kind of creature bait that you like works, but all you're going to do is you're going to Texas rig it just like this with that straight shank, pop it through, bring it on out, and then bring the hook on through. There's a small keeper on all these straight shanks just like this. Pop that out and then just skin hook it, basically. In this situation, it's not like you're dragging where you want like a little bit of the tip out, or you want to like double hook the tip, like pass the hook through the plastic and then re-hook it. In this case, since you're using, I think it's 70 or 80 pound, it's the Daiwa Samurai braid, which we're going to talk about in a sec, but I got heavy braid, I got a pretty stiff rod, and you're gonna have no problem popping the hook out. I will warn you though, one of the reasons I'm using this bait is you can see it's pretty skinny. The hook does pop out a lot on this, and I mentioned that when I did a few punching videos last year. I like that because what happens is, especially when you're fishing some of this submerged hydrilla, oftentimes the bite's a little hard to feel. You might get a knock, but sometimes it's weight, and that's exactly what the hydrilla hanging on your bait feels like. So the hook does pop out. So if I do feel like, oh, it's hydrilla, and I just pull, if something's on there and pulling back, that snelled knot that I use that kicks the hook up is actually going to pass right through this bait and hook that fish. Now, we are using Samurai braid. Samurai braid is kind of a waxy, kind of smooth braid. Why I'm doing that is because this grass is not hard cover. It's soft, what I'd consider soft submergent vegetation. It's either eelgrass that's chopped up, or it's hydrilla that's either submerged or topped off in the water. The Samurai braid's a little quieter, so if I do need to pump that bait up and down and kind of flick it and kind of tease them a little bit to get them to bite, I'm not making a bunch of sound. Guntersville is one of the most pressured lakes in the country, and I really believe that braid sound can scare them away. I don't like going to fluorocarbon in this situation. There's just too much stretch there, and I think I lose, even though you do get more bites. I 100% admit that. I think you lose more fish, so it's a trade-off. I'd rather have the braid, and I think I get a little bit of a one-up with that smoother braid, but we need to get back to catching some fish.